I think before we go to questions and answers, I was looking at all these discussions going on, listening to them all, and of course, having been heavily involved for 6 years on the Shard and lived with Irvine Cellar for 6 years, and for those that heard the speech and talk this morning, whether it be innovation, whether it be BIM modelling, whether it be the challenges building in the city or in a congested urban area, are all relevant. But the theme is always the same, isn't it? It's about designing for prefabrication or design for manufacture. It's about just looking at what the constraints are and picking the best possible options to go and build it, whether it be in an area where labour is cheap and prefabrication isn't cost effective or whatever. But question and answers really, knowing that we've covered BIM modelling, as I call it, because I'm a kind of heathen, and not digital engineering, whether it's the fact of innovation and how far we push innovation and how far it can push it in terms of speed, construction technology and the change in 20 years that we've had, and now that has improved immensely to the point in time when I think the next talk is going to be about how quickly we can build a tower prefabricated in China, to now, building in a congested city, which when you're in Abu Dhabi or you're in China doesn't quite come into the constraints of building in central London. So can I open the floor to question and answers? So there's going to be a roving mic going around, so people please feel free, step up.
Yeah, Moira Moser from Hong Kong and China, where things are different. A question for David and Geoff both. Agreed that the engineering and the buildability need to be incorporated from the very earliest stages in the design, from concept and schematics. How do you see we can overcome the obstacles of the traditional sequential arrangement of contracts to design and then engineer and then look at the construction, so that we can take advantage of the constructability, the buildability at an early stage?
I suppose it's at the moment we're doing something quite unique in Dubai, which is probably similar to what's happening in the likes of Hong Kong and China. EMA have come up with a new philosophy where they'll come up with a building, they'll launch it, 2 weeks later we have to start building. And those sort of things can't happen in the likes of London or New York. But Dubai is one of those unique places where it can. So they've come up with the collaborative approach where it's like a design and construct, but it's not. It's a standard contract. We're engaged by them. The consultant still works for the client, but we all work together as a team to come up with the right solution. The program times are almost impossible, but we have to achieve them. To the point where we did our first raft pour on this building about 4 weeks ago, and we received the municipality approval the day before. So we had actually procured everything, we had it all installed, and we were waiting for that little piece of paper to allow us to proceed. So every country in the world is different, and the municipalities, the whole approach has to be looked at, and I think that was something that I focused on. You have to look at where you're building, you have to look at what the methods, you have to look at the approval process before you can really answer that question in its context.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Geoff on that, but the key part of it is the collaboration part, and there are a number of contractual routes that I think might become more and more common as the clients try and get to make that sort of opportunity of how are we going to collaborate sort of work, and if the clients are appointing somebody earlier on to work with the team and the designers, then that is exactly how you get a collaboration. There are risks associated with that, and other ways are like PPP or other contractual setups that allow the teams to work together. And I'm not saying that is the way to go. I'm just saying that what you've pointed out is a problem with the way things currently are, and and I think it is a problem, and I think things will change where alternative procurement routes that allow and encourage this collaboration and allow contractors to develop solutions appropriate to the way they like to build things is something that has to be explored because it's an opportunity.
I think we'd all agree, wouldn't we, or most, I'd say generally would agree that, and we would on this side of the table as well as contractors, early engagement in a pre-construction programme, some way, shape or form, brings the benefit of buildability. Of course, that infamous word of trust needs to be there, that you engage a contractor early, you get them involved in the buildability, you bring on the innovation, you get the design team to work with the pre-fabrication to actually design for manufacture, so you can deliver it quickly, and ultimately if that all works together, the end product is a fast and quicker and more cost-effective programme. But it is breaking down the early barriers and that most traditional kind of sequential event of let's design it, then let's get a contractor on board, and that's what we need to break. And hopefully by those clients that are willing to go into a pre-engineering agreement without total commitment is the way forward.
Thank you very much. My name is Aslan. Actually, I enjoy a lot I've seen a lot of prefabricated items that you have in the construction and the building. Have you ever thought about regarding the foundation? It could be possible to be fabricated or prefabricated, you know, and just bring it to the construction site?
That's one for you, David.
It depends on the size. If it's a 30-metre raft, then 3 metres deep, then no, but there are components that you can prefabricate. You know, you can build very large sort of prefabricated cages and put them into the ground, and we are being continually challenged internally for the smaller buildings to look at sort of prefabricated ground floor and systems. So it's an area that we're looking at. We're very interested in ideas, and we are trying to develop some of our own. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, one of the problems you do face, if you think about the London scenario, is sometimes we don't know what's down there until we go down there. So prefabrication is all well and good if you have long enough to think about it, design it and prefabricate. Quite often when we get into deep foundations in London, I hate to use the sentence making things up as we go along, but sometimes you have to, because that's some of the challenges you're faced with. You do often hit the unknown. So prefabrication is best suited to maybe some of the greenfield sites where you do have the opportunity to think about it, plan in advance, and make the right economic decision. In congested historical city centre sites, I think it will be quite difficult for major projects.
I would agree with that. I mean, deep basements are, how can you prefabricate a deep basement? You need to dig it out and put something in.
And a lot depends on the ground conditions as well. If you've got 1,000 kPa rock, it's a completely different scenario of having some clay or mud that you've got actually no support. So again, every project is different.
Question for David. You quoted some statistics earlier in your presentation. You said, I think, in North America, architects or consultants are using BIM in about 85% of their projects, but Europe is about 50%.
Yeah.
What about contractors? Do you think that they're at those ratios, or are they not as far along in using BIM?
I think the big international contractors are completely committed to it. I think that some of the challenges are with some of the sort of small, medium-sized that have not invested in that. But certainly throughout the world, people see the sort of real opportunity that, you know, you get rid of a factor of 10 of your coordination problems by coordinating it before you build it.
I think it's a given statement, isn't it, that in the UK, of course, and the government have made the policy that within the next, what is now 4 years, those people, those contractors that are not operating on BIM will not be doing public sector work. Open statement from government, Paul Morell's statement as he was construction chief, and I think they're still adhering to that. So I think anybody that isn't in the contracting world on the BIM model in some way, shape or form now has got to be, well, I think most of them are now, but has got to be conscious of the fact that the watershed is coming, and 4 years from now you will not be allowed to bid public sector work.
And I would expect that they shouldn't be in business in 4 years' time if they're not doing BIM, because, you know, unless they're supplying widgets that someone else will put in, then you know, it is the only way to build. I'd be interested if anyone thought there was another way. Does anyone here think there's another way? Yeah. So.
There you are. Major contractor consensus here.
Yeah.
It seems that all the buildings that everyone's been talking about at the conference are bespoke, designed, I almost can say iconic buildings. Do you think there's in the future an opportunity for a more standardised building unit that has lifts, slabs and all sorts of elements that would enable us to build more efficient and more standardised buildings, and perhaps rather than apply our construction methodology to a bespoke building, we can build much more efficient and environmentally sound buildings if they were not so much prefabricated but had more standardised elements?
Geoff?
Well, I think that sort of thing is actually already coming in. In Australia, there's a company that it's a modular company, but they have actually set up a website where you can pretty much go on the website and pick what you want, and it will be built into that building. So it is a modular solution. It is undertaken in a factory, but it is, that sort of thing is coming along. The whole idea of that sort of solution is you're going to probably have fairly boring buildings, and what we all enjoy doing is building those buildings that look fantastic, and to get the most efficient building that is going to be built extremely quickly and extremely cost effective will literally be a square box, and a lot of architects aren't going to be very happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people, you know, coming with books and saying, you want to choose a building, we've got the plans, it's ready to go. And BIM and digital sort of modelling, of course, gives you that ability to cut and paste, Control V. And I think it's something that there will be parts of the industry that will be looking to, in some countries, will be looking to simply say, well, that will be the cheapest way to do things, and that's what we're going to do, and it becomes a very much a product of essentially a manufactured product based on a catalogue. And I think that we as an industry need to think what we do. I don't think it'll ever take place in London because you know, there aren't many square sites in London where you can put square boxes where that would be acceptable. But there are certain parts of the world where there are, and I think that communities need to protect themselves against that. But we as builders, designers, engineers and architects also need to have a view on that.
I think also you look at countries like Saudi Arabia and India that have huge developments, and a particular project that we looked at last year had, I think, 243 six-storey buildings that were all identical. So from a design point of view, they didn't pay very much. They'll get pretty efficient at it once they sort of have done a few. But it's going to be an awfully boring and ugly development by the end of it. So, but these sort of things, when it does come to mass housing and low-cost housing, I think it's already happening.
Yeah, George, we're in the next 2 months, we're just about to start building the world's tallest modular building in New York. It's a residential tower. It will be the first of 12, I think. And whilst architecturally not necessarily stunning, it's architecturally okay, and it's functional, and it's cost effective, and it's quick to build, and it's efficient. So I think it comes down to the comment earlier on. I mean, if you look at the graphic on the big slide, all of those buildings have one thing in common: they're all different. you know, if you build anything in London, it has high architectural merit, technically complex, because that's how we've always done it. It doesn't mean to say that's how we're always going to do it, but that's what we've done so far. There will be, as Geoff says, areas where maybe, you know, function is more important than form, and I think that's a decision you take based on the particular building you're trying to create in the area you're trying to build it. So for us, building modular in New York to house a load of people in high-rise apartments is the perfect opportunity to do that. It doesn't suit everybody.
That said, of course, standard component-based design, which we've all talked about alongside design for manufacture, you know, has been talked about many times, and we end up, you know, heading the lines with the fact that, you know, many architects do not want to use standard-based components, and therefore we, even to the facts of doors and frames, we go back into redesigning and something new again, rather than sitting and agreeing as where we can a standard component-based design, whilst the cladding may be special, whilst the form may be different. 90% of the building, 90% will probably be a bit OTT there, a big chunk of the building could be through standardisation, but as I'm not an architect, and I'm sure Ken Shuttleworth and others would probably put me right in terms of what they think about standard component-based design.
Yeah, and I think the twisted tower thing that I showed is a standard component. It doesn't have to be dull and boring. Different sort of modular solutions have their particular place. The broad solution, which we're going to hear about next, has its place. There are some really good things within it, and there are some real limitations with it. So it just depends on where you are and what you're trying to do, and picking the right thing for the right location. But we need to get more efficient about how we build them, and use our imaginations more to, I think, look at efficiencies both in the design process, but designing something that can be fabricated or constructed efficiently.
Good. Next.
Excellent talk, David, of course. We have seen these things before, of course. I've seen system building in Japan, and I remember 35 years ago seeing those things in Scandinavia. So those sort of ideas have been around for a while. How is what you're offering better than that, do you think?
You mean some of the systems buildings that were around in the 60s and and before that?
The kit houses and that sort of stuff, and that's more in the residential stuff. But and in Japan, it's in a larger scale than that.
I think that the what we're showing is a series of solutions that can be put together in different ways. We're not actually having a holistic system that fits together. I think that within that there are bits that really work in particular locations, and there are bits that are challenged for particular locations. So it's having the industry recognize the opportunity and actually say, well, that could be designed to be very efficient by doing it this way. And I'm not suggesting that there has to be one solution that fits all. The stuff that Skanska are doing in New York is really quite interesting. Well, definitely has a place.
Well, can I say, put your hands together, please, for Paul, Geoff, and David. Great speech, and thank you very much. Thank you.